Since 2011, American Giant has been making everyday clothing with extraordinary effort. Not in far-off factories, but right here in the USA. We obsess over fabrics, fit, and details, because if you're going to wear it every day, it should feel great and last for years. From the cut of a hoodie to the finishing of a seam, nothing is overlooked. Our supply chain is tight-knit and local, which means less crisscrossing the country and more care in every step. The result is durable clothing, t-shirts, hoodies, sweatpants, and denim that become part of your life season after season. This isn't fast fashion, it's clothing made with purpose by people who care as much about how it's made as how it fits. Get 20% off your first order with code STAPLE20 at American-Giant.com. That's 20% off your first order at American-Giant.com with code STAPLE20.
Point is because when the lawyers, we want to do our jobs to help our clients. So when we start bringing up issues that were not brought up at the beginning because the actual buyer and seller did not know better, then things get get thrown off, and then they want to blame the lawyers, like, oh, lawyers are complicating things. I'm like, no, it's just the timing was not right. We have to do this earlier. And so so it's better that we're involved earlier so that the deal is more smooth and there's no delays. So I think those are the two biggest mistakes I see.
Oh, what's a good time to bring the attorneys in?
So on the buy side, I would say before you sign a letter of intent, have it clearly negotiated with the seller. The seller.
Sit back and relax and get ready for another exclusive episode of the Online Marketing Secrets Podcast with Lopez.
This episode is brought to you by ERC. Let me ask you a question. Did you have a business during the pandemic with 5 or more employees? If the answer is yes, you might be leaving money on the table. All you got to do is go to ercbankroll.com and you can get your money. The best part about this, it only takes 5 minutes or less to see if you qualify. Go to ercbankroll.com and put in your name, email address, answer 2 questions, click on the submit button, and you're done. It's that simple. And get your money. So don't wait. Go to ercbankroll.com and get the money for your business today. Welcome to another episode of the Online Marketing Secrets Podcast. I'm your host, Lopez. So like and share this episode. Like and share this episode wherever you're listening to it, whether you're on iTunes, Shopify, or wherever you listen to this episode. I want to hear your feedback. Love it or hate it. I want to hear what you think about the show. Any questions, any concerns, send it to my email address at Actually, no. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode coming at you from the Online Marketing Secrets Podcast. I'm your host, Lopez. So like and share this episode. Yes. So today, I have another special guest. However, before I get into that, I want to hear what you think. I want to hear what you think about the show. I want to hear what you think about all the episodes so far. So send me an email at support@kingofcashflowwebsites.com. That's support@kingofcashflowwebsites.com, or just go to my website at cashflowwebsites.com. So like and share this episode and leave me a 5-star review in iTunes or wherever you listen to me right now. I appreciate that. So with that being said, today you're going to love this show. If you have a business if you need someone to help you with contracts, acquisition, maybe you want to sell a business, maybe you want to buy a business, and you need someone to help you with those contracts, or maybe you need someone to help you start and form a LLC, C Corp, S Corp, a holding company, any of that complicated stuff. And maybe you don't know what I'm talking about, but you're going to find out. And if you're starting a business or have a business, at some point, you're going to need help with contracts. So my special guest today can help you do exactly that. She's a corporate attorney. She's been doing it for over 12 years now. She can help you with acquisition. She'll help you buy a business, sell a business, start a business with contracts and all the complicated stuff that we don't understand or maybe we don't like doing. And she can help you with LLCs, forming a corporation, and help you with the business contracts, operating contracts, buy and sell contracts, corporate contracts, all pretty much any and every type of contract you ever heard of or that you ever need in business. My special guest is Danya Shakfeh. Welcome to the show. So, where are you from?
That's a loaded question. Well, so I was born and raised in Florida. I'm currently in the Chicagoland area in Illinois, and my parents are from Syria. And so when someone says, where are you from? There's so many ways to interpret that. So I'm just giving you the whole kitchen sink answer. Gotcha.
So have you always wanted to be an attorney, or, is it a family thing, or is it something that you kind of fell in love with, or what?
So I knew that I've always wanted to get in somewhere in the area of social justice, especially being like a second generation, Muslim and Arab. So, there was the Iraqi war when I was in high school and college, and the war in Afghanistan, and also just a lot of civil liberty issues. So for a while I wanted to be a journalist, and then I switched to law. But somehow I ended up as a corporate attorney because I found that first of all, in order to get into social justice work, you don't need to be an attorney. And two, it's very hard to make change. And I just found that after a while I got burnt out. So I wanted to do something that was more for myself, but still I was helping people. So that's kind of how I ended up in law. I'm probably, I think, the first American attorney in my family, which is very different than being an attorney in other countries. So it was a lot of navigation for me as well.
Oh, okay. So what's the difference between being an attorney in other countries versus being over here? Because I don't know,
I think a lot of it is cultural. So I'd say that in a lot of other countries, like where my parents are from in Syria, there's no you don't go to undergrad and then law school. You go straight out from high school to law school, and I believe it's the same in Europe. And so it's not a master's level degree. So we actually have more schooling in the U.S. But more importantly, the culture. So trying to understand the cultural aspects of being an attorney in the U.S. The difference, for example, between a solo attorney or a small to mid-sized law firm, and then there's big law, right? These big conglomerate style law firms, and it was something that I had to try to navigate to see what my career would look would look like. Do I want to be have my own business, and if I did, what would that look like versus being employed or being partner at a bigger law firm? That's something that I almost had to learn on my own.
Yeah. So how was being a corporate lawyer compared to what you're doing now?
So I am a corporate lawyer, but more in the context of small to mid-sized businesses. Okay. I think when people think corporate law, they do think bigger law firms and buying and selling, multi-million, billion-dollar businesses. But there's a lot of business happening on, like on Main Street too. There's, people who are buying and selling businesses that are in the low $1 million range to, like the multi-million dollar range, or even under around $100,000. Like these, I do believe that if you're buying a business, you definitely should get a lawyer, because even if the cost of the business itself is small, the headache of dealing with any mistakes could outweigh even the price of the sale of the business. Either you end up with a tax bill later on that you didn't know existed, or there was a license that didn't get transferred over, or whatever it is. So it's better to be represented. And so my law firm it's not big, but it's myself, and I recently hired an associate, and I have a couple of staff members, and I'm looking to grow. So I think now in the past few years, I've had a better idea of what my career would look like in terms of not just being a lawyer, but being a business owner.
Oh, okay. So what made you go the business route as far as acquisition and contracts instead of, because, there's a lot of areas where attorneys can focus on, So what made you go that route, the business route?
I just like it. So I've always been someone who likes to build and create things. When I was in high school, I liked to build and create websites. I had a blog, but I like to design all the colors and style it up. I taught myself HTML and coding so that I could do that. I also, like when I was little, I liked to build or to see like arts and crafts too, is something I really enjoyed. So for me, business is just another way of creating and building something. You have something in your mind, you have a vision, and putting it into real life is, that's a creative act. And so that's why I enjoy, working with business owners and businesses, because to me, it's a creative act.
Oh, okay. Because, a lot of business can be complicated sometimes, especially if you've never done it before.
Right.
There's a lot of paperwork, especially if you start from scratch.
A lot of paperwork. Yeah.
You start from scratch. So do you get people that start from scratch, or do you get people that are maybe they want to buy a business, or both?
I have a lot of people who definitely try to do things on their own at the beginning, which makes it more complicated for me, because I either have to redo some of what they've done, or start from scratch after they've tried to start from scratch. And I think, like you said, a lot of people don't realize how complicated it can be until they start it and they say, well, I need some help. And then there are some people who really don't want to be bothered with those details, and they pass it off right away to an attorney. So I definitely get a combination of both, but I would say the vast majority of people try to do it on their own, and then when they get frustrated is when they come to me. Sometimes people come to me after they've discovered a mistake, and that's obviously more complicated, because sometimes, because at that point you might be dealing with the government or taxes that were owed or something like that. And so what I can do for them is very limited, because you're kind of just stuck with what you've already done. So I definitely advise people, I'm like, listen, even if you're not sure if you need a lawyer, at least talk to one so they can tell you when you need a lawyer. But I think for most of us, it's a learning experience like anything else in life, and you don't know what you don't know. So people do come to me with a lot of things that are already in place that I have to adjust my way around, to say the least.
Yeah, because online, there's not a lot of people talking about it, but there's some people that talk about seller finance and creative finance, and a lot of sellers are kind of either don't know about it, or they think it's illegal.
You mean like seller financing is illegal?
Or creative finance. They think that you have to get a loan in order to have some type of agreement to purchase a company from somebody. They don't think that they feel like it can't be just the buyer and the seller doing business between each other. They feel like we have to have a bank or some institution in between.
That's definitely a myth. There are ways that you can do things without involving a lender. So one way to do it is you can do the seller financing, Another way to buy a business is through something called an earn-out agreement, where you have a base purchase price, and then certain parts of the purchase price are contingent on the performance of the business over a certain amount of time. With seller financing, the problem is that although it's an option, a lot of sellers don't want to also be a lender in that case. So it depends on the size of the deal and the risk that a seller is willing to take, and the goals of the seller. If you have a seller who wants to retire and move to another country, they probably don't want to deal with trying to collect on a buyer's default. And then it also depends on the market. If it's hard to get a loan, but a seller really wants to get out of their business, then that's pretty much an option that they don't really have any other option. So it just really depends. It's very fact specific, but definitely, seller financing. And then you also have the earn-out agreements where the parties agree to a price, and then the seller could get more money on top of that if the buyer does well or not so well. The problem is, like, you're kind of involving the seller still in the sale of the business, or excuse me, like in how the business is run, and that could cause disputes because the seller could say, well, the reason why the business did not do well is because you, the buyer, did not do what you're supposed to do, and then the buyer could argue, well, this is the business that you gave me, and I'm doing, so that can be a point of contention. So it's an option, and usually if in times when it's hard to get a loan, then it's an option. So there are definitely ways that you don't need to get a lender, for sure.
Yeah, and I realized that I actually forgot that, my parents, they were doing the same type of like deals back in the day, but the only difference is they, they had good relationships with people that they trusted, and they wasn't doing contracts. It was more like a handshake was more.
You're getting anxiety.
Right? But this was like, but this is like 80, 90 years ago.
Right.
That's when so it was a different time back then.
Yeah.
But I realized they were doing the same thing. It was the same strategy, but it was just less paperwork. That's all.
Yeah, and that paperwork is a pro and a con, right? If there's a problem that you run into, if you don't have paperwork, you're going to have a problem in court trying to collect on your rights. And it's not even necessarily an issue of like legal disputes, but sometimes people don't always remember what they said, or they have misunderstandings, and it becomes a he said, she said, or like, I thought you meant this, no, I didn't. Well, we don't know what and so the paperwork is, like I said, people don't always like it. It's not glamorous, but it definitely comes in handy when there's a problem. But the idea of buying and selling a business without paperwork definitely gives me anxiety.
Yeah, and like in our case, like my mom and my cousin, they did it's kind of like a land agreement together. My cousin, he owned all the land they had an agreement that basically says that as long as we're here, we could always have a house here, right? But it was never no paperwork. And what happened is my cousin ended up dying, and everything was passed down to his daughters. Now his daughters didn't know the agreement that my cousin and my mom had, and see, that's where the problem comes in at. All you can see is, of course, they have two houses on the same land, but now the house is in my parents' name, and the other house is in my cousin's name, but no one really knows any agreement. So it becomes a situation where, hey, you just keep giving us the taxes to pay for the land, and it's okay.
Yeah, I think a lot of people don't realize, like, even if there's never a problem between the actual parties, like, people say, that's my best friend, that's my cousin, we're never going to get into a fight because whatever, we grew up together. But yeah, sometimes like the ramifications are beyond like the two people involved. You have Uncle Sam dealing with things, or if there's a lawsuit that has nothing to do with the people involved, like they're still going to look at your assets, and you want to know what your assets are in order to either make a claim or not against it. So really the having the paperwork is not just for the benefit of the people involved, but all the people that are kind of affected by the transaction, kind of like what you were talking about, like if someone were, God forbid, pass away. So so I think paperwork is good. It's fine. People say often, I don't want to leave a paper trail. I'm like, paper trail is not a bad thing. You want a paper trail. You just have to do it right so that you're protected.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, when they hear contracts, they automatically think court system.
Yeah. Yeah, I know people come to me, they're like, okay, well, because I'm a lawyer, and people think, okay, well, I hope I never need you. And I say, no, if you're making a deal, because I make deals, not break deals, is what I tell people. If you're making a deal, if you're growing your business, then you do want to be calling me, because I'm one of those lawyers that if you have something good happening in your life, you want to give me a call. So if you want to buy a business, that's something to celebrate. If you want to sell your business, that's also something to celebrate. If you want to start a business, if you want to hire employees, all those things are actually things that people enjoy, and it's a sign of growth in their lives. But you want to involve the lawyers so that you don't end up in court, so that you don't have that headache later. We can guide you through that process. So I guess I'd like I said, I'm one of the good lawyers.
Gotcha. So what state do you practice law in?
I practice mostly in Illinois, but I'm also licensed in Florida, and so I do take clients there as well.
Okay. So when it comes to I guess buying businesses, what are some common mistakes you see people make?
Oh gosh, where do I begin? I guess I would start with the way that you start negotiating the deal is very important. So just to give a brief overview is the stages of buying a business. First, there's usually like an informal discussion between the buyer and seller, like, hey, do you want to buy the business? And they'll go over some of the basic numbers and what the business, is about. And then like a non-disclosure agreement is usually signed. And that's when the buyer will get more information, especially about the numbers. And then around that time, they have something called a letter of intent, which is like a non-binding purchase offer, right? So, but there are certain parts that are binding, but the buyer is saying, I really want to buy your business and I'm serious. And then it's signed by both parties. And because it's non-binding, a huge mistake that people make is they don't take it very seriously, but it does set the foundation of the final purchase. So what happens is that sometimes if someone wants to change their mind about certain parts of the deal and it wasn't something that was discussed early on when the letter of intent was signed, people get annoyed. They don't want to, they start to lose trust. And so that's a huge mistake I see, is not starting that beginning. Just because it's non-binding, it doesn't mean it's not important. Another thing too is involving the lawyers a little bit too late. And it kind of goes back to that original point, is because when the lawyers, we want to do our jobs to help our clients. So when we start bringing up issues that were not brought up at the beginning because the actual buyer and seller did not know better, then things get thrown off, and then they want to blame the lawyers, like, oh, lawyers are complicating things. I'm like, no, it's just the timing was not right. We have to do this earlier. And so so it's better that we're involved earlier so that the deal is more smooth and there's no delays. I think those are the two biggest mistakes I see.
Oh, what's a good time to bring the attorneys in?
So on the buy side, I would say before you sign a letter of intent, have it clearly negotiated with the seller. The seller should also have an attorney, but it's more critical for the buyer to have it at that time. But I would say once you are in that phase, then you do want to have a lawyer, especially from the buy side. Prior to that, if it's just a question of numbers, then you don't really need a lawyer at that time, but I would at least involve an accountant or a financial advisor to help you give an idea as to whether the business is profitable.
Oh, okay. So what about startups? I know there's a whole lot of mistakes.
Oh gosh. Oh gosh. Right.
Including me.
I could go on and on about this one. All right. So first of all, choosing the right entity, corporation or LLC. And I think a lot of people assume corporation. And then another big mistake I see is people say S Corp. I want to be an S Corp. And what they don't realize is an S Corp is not a legal designation. It's actually a tax designation. So you could be an LLC S Corp. And so a lot of people, they come to me when they don't need a corporation. It's just like one or two people owning a business. I'm like, no, you really should be an LLC, not a corporation. So that's the first thing. Not having corporate documents like if you're the LLC, you want your operating agreement. If you're a corporation, a shareholder, agreement and bylaws. And what a lot of people don't realize too, especially if you even if you have two people, it's really important to get those documents in place. Because not only if someone wants to get out of the business, if someone dies, you want to put all that in writing to protect not only, like yourself and your family. And kind of to the point that I mentioned before is sometimes the issue is not that you're going to end up in court, but just that you might end up sabotaging your own business because you never sat down and had a discussion as to how the partners in the business are going to run it, who is going to make what profit, who is responsible for what. And so I go over that with my clients very early on so that you're not like 2 months into your business and you've invested hundreds of thousands of dollars only to realize, wait a minute, we're not going to see a profit until X date because they didn't know. So that's probably startups. That's probably the biggest issue that I see.
Yeah,
it's a doozy.
I think it's to me a lot of that stuff is very complicated because like I remember when I first got started online, I started writing books and publishing books, and I didn't really know. I didn't know which, I didn't know if I should do an LLC or a corporation. At the time, I'm like, well, I don't, because I did not know the difference, and people were trying to explain it to me, and they said, just do an LLC. I'm like, well, and then it gets complicated because every state is different.
Yes, I was going to say that. So there are some states where LLCs, if you're a single member LLC, you don't have the same protections. So like in Florida and Illinois, they're different. So I always tell people, if you're going to be in Florida, you want to be very careful what you choose, because like I said, like you just don't have the same protections, because the whole purpose of a corporation is to protect your assets. And so in that, so in Florida, it's different than Illinois. And then also, and then there's different types of LLCs. Are you going to be member managed or manager managed? And all these, it can, even for me as a lawyer, I'm like, I always have to rerun the rules in my head because, like I start from scratch every single time in my head because I don't want to miss anything. It's easy to feel like you're such an expert where you can not really pay attention because you start to go on autopilot as an expert. But I always make sure, like every single time I have my checklist that's like, LLC like 101 so that I don't forget anything. So it is complicated. It's complicated. I agree. Yeah. You just have to know the right advisors.
And then it's hard to find the right CPA.
Yeah. I have a soapbox about that. I'm very careful. Tell me what happened to you. Why is that? Because,
you might try one person in 1 year and they come back and say, hey, this is what I did. They break everything down. And the first time it happens, you don't really know if it's a good deal, bad deal, right, wrong. You really don't know, right? Until a couple months go by and I'll be like, I met other people, same or similar situation. And they said, oh, this is what my taxes look like. And I said, what? And I ended up owing money 1 year and they didn't owe anything. They actually got a return. And then, so it gets, it's all that stuff is complicated. Some people, there's some CPAs, they just do general stuff, right? Everything. And then there's some CPAs, they specialize.
So there are different types of CPAs. So one thing that that I tell my clients is CPAs are actually not working in your interest. They're actually by law required to work in the interest of the government. So they're not going to help you get. Some may get less taxes, but that's not really their goal. Like that's not what they're trained to do. So it's important for a business owner to know the different types of accountants. There's tax planning accountants, which is not the same thing as like a CPA whose job is to file your taxes, because those are two types of services with two kinds of goals. And so you probably want more than one financial advisor to make sure, like really to check in and make sure that you're not basically we don't want to overpay taxes, but the CPA, like, that's not really their job to make sure. So some do, some don't, but I'd like to have at least 2 types of, advisors so that you're not paying things you don't have to.
Because when we lived in Atlanta, I think we found a CPA, and he was, it was a referral, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, okay, we're new here, and new to Atlanta, so I'm like, okay, we'll try him out, right? And he did. At the time, I thought he did a decent job, until someone else that we knew went to the same guy, and they said he was very aggressive. I said, what? He said, hey, how aggressive do y'all want to be? I said, well, he didn't ask us that.
Yeah.
So, it's you just have to. It takes time to find the right people. That's the point I'm trying. That's the point I'm trying to make.
Definitely. And what's scary about taxes specifically? It's like the government wants you to calculate your own taxes, but then if you get it wrong, they penalize you. So it's like a guessing game. I'm like, well, if you're gonna penalize me for not paying my taxes, you got to tell me what I owe. But I'm here trying to figure it out. And if I hire the wrong person or something like that, and we don't know. It's not. I don't think people who owe taxes necessarily are trying to be fraudulent. It's just sometimes they have bad advisors. But how would they even know? So it's kind of a weird system that we have. I think our government should be more proactive if they're going to punish us this much for not paying taxes.
Because if you hire the wrong person, they do a bad job. They get off for free. It's all on you.
Have you ever heard? The story of Steve Harvey and his accountant. What happened with him? Steve Harvey. And how he ended up owing I think it was $20 million in taxes. And it was,
that type of stuff. That happens a lot with celebrities. A lot.
Yeah, unfortunately. So you always got to keep a good eye on your account. But if you have someone who's, the accountant could basically not be paying your taxes like you hired them to do, and at the end of the day, the government's going to come after you for that money, and you're going to find a way to pony it up. So
I think that's unfair.
Yeah, it is unfair. Yeah.
So how do you help people with franchise?
I focus more on the franchisee side. I help them negotiate and review their franchises. So franchise law is unique because it kind of combines business law with consumer protection law. So usually business and consumer law are 2 different types of, or they have like they're treated differently because a business owner is assumed to be sophisticated. And so certain rights that consumers have don't apply to business owners. But with franchises, because it's that weird overlap of making sure that you have certain legal protections in addition to being a business owner. So for example, and this is a more general example, like here in Illinois, if you want to, if you're a business and you want to have a contract with a consumer, renewed automatically, you have to give them certain disclosures and notices. Whereas that same contract, if you want that to renew automatically with a business, the business has no rights in terms of notices. But like I said, with franchises, it's not like that. It's it's really combined. So first I check that the franchisees' rights, their personal rights, are not being violated. They're not being sold like a snake oil business, because that can happen. And then 2, that they know exactly what they're getting into. One of the differences between a franchise, like if you buy into a franchise, versus buying a business or starting a business, is that if things don't work out, you could just shut down. Whereas with a franchisee, you're in a 10-year long contract, and you have the royalties, and there are all these things that you have to do on top of running your business. And so there's a greater risk. So I help my clients make sure that they know what they're getting into, and helping them negotiate those terms.
Yeah, because I know a guy that he bought into a franchise, a cleaning business. Mm-hmm. He was telling me, he didn't tell me everything, but he was telling me where it's you have fees you have to pay, I think every 45 days. Then they help you with. Well, they also support you too. They help you with leads and new clients so often. But there's one thing that he told me I didn't like though. He said, if you have a contract and you, for whatever reason, right or wrong, if the client starts to complain about anything, right or wrong, you have to give the money back.
Yeah. The customer's always right, for sure. Yeah. According to the franchisor. Yeah.
Because I asked him, I said, so you have no say so as a, in the matter. He said, well, no, if the client doesn't like whatever it is, they can pick up the phone and call the corporate headquarters.
Yeah.
And they'll tell me to give them their money back.
I've seen that. Yeah, I had a franchise once that had a similar clause, and that can be really scary, especially if there's no standard, like right in terms of what and who's ultimately responsible. And unfortunately, you as a franchisee, there's only so much you can negotiate with a franchisor, because the franchise, one of the reasons why a franchise is has its appeal is because it's universal. Like, everyone knows the brand. And so I will go to a Dunkin' Donuts, for example, because I know they're all going to be the same. But if you have all these franchisees with all these different rules, then having being a customer of the Dunkin' Donuts, or being the owner of the Dunkin' Donuts, is not as valuable anymore. And so you can negotiate some things in the franchisee, but yeah, it just kind of defeats the purpose of a franchise if you start to negotiate too much. And not all franchises are that controlling. Some are pretty hands-off. They're just like, listen, you're borrowing our brand, you pay us the money, and you get to do whatever you want. And then some of them I've read are extremely controlling, and it's just but there's so many franchises that people have a lot of options if they want to buy into a franchise.
Yeah, exactly. But just him in particular, and then they got
I have to ask if he signed or not.
Oh yeah, he's been in business for 5 years.
Okay.
Yeah, he's doing well.
Okay.
I helped him out. He's doing well.
Good.
He's I think during the pandemic, he doubled.
Oh wow.
I gave him some advice, and he doubled. I think he do over 200,000 a year.
Okay.
Yeah,
nice.
Yeah.
That's pretty good for a franchise.
But here's the thing. I think they do like a 51-59 ownership split within the first 10 years. After the 10 years, I think he get another 10%. And they lose 10% after the 10 years. So it's a lot. It's a
trade-off. You're buying their brand, or not buying, but leasing their brand, and that has value.
Yeah, but they do give a lot of support. So that's one thing I can say. Yeah.
You definitely want to look for a franchise that provides support, like you said, a lot, training, and they're not overly controlling. And so part of the requirements of a franchise is that they have to disclose all of the existing franchises. So if you're a franchisee looking into a franchise, you can see how many how many have opened and closed, in the past few years. So that would give you a sign if they're successful or not. So they should, a franchisor should be giving you all that, information, so you can make an informed decision. So it can be a good deal.
Yeah. So what type of businesses you work with? Are you specialized, or it doesn't really matter?
So I focus most of my clients are in either, I have some in the food industry, but mostly in the services industry. So people are just providing different unique services, consulting services. I do have some clients who are in the tech, area. So, I always forget what's it called, the SaaS, like the services coming out. Yeah, the SaaS. And so I have clients in that arena, and I have a few trucking clients as well, and some food. I think about maybe half of my franchisees are restaurants. So I don't quite specialize, but I have quite a variety of clients in their industries.
So if people want to work with you, where would they go to?
To my website. As you can see on the screen, it's motivalaw.com. And the word Motiva, people always ask me what that means. It comes from the word motivation, because I like to work with like motivated business owners, and I really love working with my clients. And so that's the best way. You can also just call our office at 630-517-5529.
Nice. There you have it.
Thank you so much for having me.
Share this episode. All links and her phone number will be found in the show notes. Until next time, we're out. Peace.